Yeah, we're obviously excited about the win. We very pleased with the effort that our players put forth. I thought that they continued to fight and play hard, which we needed to do if we were going to get a W against a very good football team. Josh Johnson's a heck of a quarterback, and then threw the ball, made some spectacular plays. So we were very fortunate to hang in there and win. But that was the thing that I thought we could do if we just don't self-destruct. So we had that one moment where there was a frustrated young man with a holding call, and we just can't have that. But other than that, I thought the guys showed the kind of discipline that you need to show, and good football teams have. So it was a small step, but it was at least a step in the right direction. So we were pleased with that.
How's it going, Coach? Troy Anthony, football game plan. I realized that your tight ends got involved more this week in the passing game. Now, is that part of the game plan, or is that just how the cards fell?
It's a combination. I mean, you always would like to take advantage of what opportunities or matchups that you think are in your favor, and we think Jake Powell gives us a distinct advantage against most people, but some people do some things schematically that don't allow us to get the ball to him. But we were able to get the ball to him a couple of times, and as you saw, we had some opportunities with EJ as well. So it was something we'd like to do more of, but again, that's dictated to a large measure by what defenses do.
John Lupo from Vavel. Congratulations, Coach.
Thank you.
You know, having coached here before with the Giants, defense and running game, and especially in this type of weather, are always a hallmark of New York football teams. So talk about how you thought the defense and the running game did today.
I thought they both did very well. And I think our defense, for the most part, with the probable exception of the D.C. game, has played very well for us. And it's just a matter of us playing complementary football. And when we can run the ball the way we did today, and as we did last week as well, it just allows us to play the kind of football that I think right now gives us the best chance to win. We have a physical pair of running backs, and our offensive line is big and strong. And when they start getting those backs running downhill, it takes a toll, and it takes a lot of time off the clock and enables the defense to be only out on the field having to defend for a minimal amount of time. So it's a nice complement to each other. But to do that, you've got to stay in a down and distance rhythm that allows you to hold on to the ball. And we did that for the most part today.
Coach, in your opinion, what was the biggest difference between the past 2 weeks with the offense and this week where you guys were able to have a much smoother performance?
Again, I thought last week it really started, and particularly in the second half where we started to kind of control the line of scrimmage and dominate with the style of, you know, a very powerful physical running game, and then with some play action passes that came off of that. So this today was more of a continuation of that than anything new. And what was exciting for me is that LA did just about all they could to stop that, knowing that that was something we were doing well, whether it was the fifth defensive lineman that they brought into the game, often, which they had not shown except down, backed up on their own goal line. They did it, you know, frequently, or they did the equivalent of that when their three linebacker set, where they walked one linebacker up to cover the guard and put the other linebacker right behind him, which gave them the same type of five-down scheme defensively, and yet we were still able to poke some holes in that, and which is a good sign, and it shows you, you know, an offensive line that's working well together, and the backs are feeding off of that. So that was good to see. Again, there's some plays, some opportunities that were still out there that we didn't quite avail of ourselves of, but we'll take the W.
Coach, they played a lot of too deep, and I thought Luis did a great job of just taking what the defense gave. And what challenges did playing too deep force on your offense, and how impressed were you with how Luis handled those situations?
It's funny, the first half was primarily too deep, but the second half was almost exclusively single high, about 95% single high. So again, it was another commitment that they made scheme-wise to try to shut down the running game. And so it gave us some chances outside. And again, we had opportunities we didn't quite take advantage of it that we need to if we're going to continue to win. But I thought Luis, to answer your question specifically, showed the kind of poise and composure and understanding of what we're trying to do that you like to see from that position. So I was very pleased with his effort. He'd be the first one to tell you that there was some chances that he didn't quite see and that he didn't quite get the ball where he needed to get it to. But the bottom line is, you keep playing, and when you miss a throw or you miss an opening that was available to you, it doesn't destroy you and prevent you from coming back the next play. And you continue to play in and play out, and he does that very well. And of course, that's just his makeup. So it was good. I think he was a significant catalyst to us playing as well as we did.
Coach, Lloyd Carroll from the Queens Chronicle. It was the third quarter. It was about halfway through. You're in, I think, Wildcat territory, 4th and inches. Do you think it may have been a little overly conservative to punt?
Yeah, well, we weren't in their territory. We were on our side of the 50, but we were right at the 50. And I'll tell you why I did it. Our defense had just been out on the field and had a great stop deep in our area. And I said, you know what, I don't want to put them in a situation where they get the ball in case we don't make it. In hindsight, we punted it down to the 10-yard line. Thank goodness we're in great shape, and they just drove it 90 yards and put it in the end zone. So I said, not my best decision. But when I saw it go out the 10 and, figured they had to ride 90 yards. But that was as much entering into my decision as anything, is that we had just been out on the field. They had just driven it down. We have stopped them, and now I didn't want to put our defense out on the 50, on our side of the field again.
But could it be demoralizing to the offense?
Yeah, it could be,
Okay.
but it worked out.
Coach, you talked about Mikhail McKay over here. You talked about Mikhail McKay getting to be the leader of the team last week. What did you think of him this week, and did you see anything that can improve upon for Luis Perez at any point?
Yeah, what I said to Mikhail is he needs to step up and be part of the leadership, and I thought that he certainly tries to do that, and he was one of the game captains today, and all throughout the entire week in practice, I thought he did a nice job of trying to elevate the players, as is usually the case when you lose 2 consecutive games in a row. There's a lot of morale problems and disappointment and dejection and everything else. But he did a good job of keeping the buoyancy of the players up so that we had spirited practices. So I was pleased with that. I know that he would like to have that catch opportunity he had back, but he did catch a touchdown pass, so he did contribute, and he does a nice job on blocking for some of those wide receiver screens. It's nice to have a big, powerful guy out there, and he's certainly that.
Coach, did Luis open the door for an opportunity as a full-time starter when Matt comes back?
That's something we'll evaluate after I look at the film, but, I'm not prepared to make any decisions at this point. But, I'm just delighted that he played as well as he did. He's been with us the least amount of time and yet has showed a pretty strong command of what we're trying to do. And that just gives the other guys some confidence and also gives them an opportunity when the ball goes to the right place to make some plays.
Hey, Coach, John Tobacco from Newsmax TV. I know you had some shuffling around on the O-line, but the running game was really productive today. What was the catalyst there?
Again, I think it started pretty strongly last week, especially in the second half. So it's what I kind of expected, and we've made a commitment to that. I've tried to push us in that direction because I think that plays to our strength. Because as I think I mentioned earlier, right now our defense is playing pretty good football, and if we can control the ball and keep the ball out of our opponent's hands as much as we have been doing as of late, it just allows them to play as dominant a football as they have been playing. But it's also capitalizing on the strength of our offensive line, which is a big, powerful group, and we got again 2 strong running backs that we purposely selected because I thought in this kind of weather and these kind of conditions, which I thought might be even worse than they've been. We've been fortunate weather-wise, but that they would, they would perform well. It would be something that would be a strength of ours. And again, over the last game and a half, I think it's proven to be true. Hopefully, we can continue to do that.
Hey, Coach, what it seems to be with Luis Perez is that he's very receptive to coaching and he wants to be coached up. Can you talk about that at all?
Yeah, I think he's like most quarterbacks that are the right makeup, the competitive kind of guys that they like to be pushed, they like to be coached, they like to be taught as to what you're trying to achieve, and he certainly is a guy that enjoys being a student of the game. You know, a guy that likes to come in and watch film. He lives with his family, you know, still out in California. His wife just had a baby, and you know, so he's got a lot of time on his hands. And so when we finish the day at about 5 o'clock, you know, it's a long day. A lot of guys aren't looking to come back in. You know, they've been in there since 8 o'clock in the morning, but he's there every night. So I mean, he's got that kind of drive to absorb as much information and much knowledge as he can, and he's done a terrific job in a very short period of time. So yeah, he's the makeup you're looking for, no question about it.
Coach.
Coach, when you find out that McGloin isn't going to go and you decide to go with Perez over Williams, who had been listed higher on the depth chart, what were your deciding factors in that decision?
It was a tough one because we have a lot of faith in Marquise as well, and certainly Marquise gives us the better athlete, the guy that can, you know, can make some plays with his athleticism and his movement. But I just thought that Lewis would give us the guy that could handle the different myriad looks that we're going to face defensively and get us into the right play more consistently. And he just seemed to have a better understanding of what it is we're trying to do right now. And so we went in that direction because of that.
Coach, Darius Victor said that he would have had nightmares because he almost broke a couple for touchdowns today if the team would have lost. You just talked about how you selected these two powerful running backs. But at 5'6", these kind of guys have chips on their shoulders when they play in the XFL. They are trying to make a difference. Maybe somebody that wouldn't give them a chance. Talk about Victor's performance and maybe that drive.
Well, the amazing thing about him is, you know, I wasn't sure until we worked him out prior to the game to make a decision whether we were even going to play him. You wouldn't know it, but he was recovering from a pretty significant ankle injury and didn't practice all week. So he's a driven guy. He's a guy that, as you say, wants to prove a point that he's, you know, a terrific football player. He's certainly fearless and likes to exhibit the physical nature of his running style. But the thing that's really enjoyable about him is, as driven, as competitive as he is, he's got about as upbeat and, you know, buoyant a personality as you're ever going to find. And I didn't even know his background till Gina told me about a week ago or 10 days ago, you know, when I realized all he's been through, and to see the guy just has one of those infectious smiles that lights up a room. And he is as positive and upbeat every day. I mean, he's amazing. So thank goodness we got him just for that, as well as the kind of football player he is.
Coach, this was a win that defined all three phases of the game, including special teams. Justin had some great punts, setting him up at the 11 there. He had some good returns. And, of course, Matthew's a perfect 5 for 5 on the season so far. Could you please talk about how important it is and how convenient it is to have such a reliable special teams unit?
Well, you saw the difference last week where special teams killed us. So to have them come back and respond the way they did, both in our coverage units and our protection, and then, as you mentioned, the punt, that's, you know, to nail them, that last punt to put them inside the 10-yard line, that's not as easy as it looks. So to do it as efficiently and as consistently as he does it has been, you know, I think he's leading the league in plus 20 punts or catches inside the 20. And what can you say about Matt? I mean, every time I look at the distance, I kind of cringe, but he assures me with that quiet confidence that, you know, Coach, I can make it from there. And this is where I've been getting. He tells me before the game exactly where it is. But with that wind swirling, and, you know, again, I'd been in there 10 years before and seen how many guys have struggled with the winds here, and to see him perform as flawlessly as he has, it's very it's a confidence booster. You know, I'm not sure I would go to that some of the decisions I make as often as I do with him, except he inspires that confidence with that kind of quiet demeanor he has that just, yeah, I got this.
Coach, two-part question. You know, they're a warm weather team coming from LA. You talked about the conditions, that it was very cold. So do you think that was an advantage for you? And you mentioned how powerful your offensive line is, and we know how good the defensive line is. So talk about how you thought the lines played on both sides of the ball and how big of a factor that was.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what we expected weather-wise, climate-wise, that we would be playing in the early part of the year, that we, you know, wanted to build our team or structure our team in that in that direction, and you know, it paid off. No, there's no question it paid off. We don't have the glittering statistics that we would like to have, but we got the W, so that's all that matters. And I think if you asked our players, that's the way they would respond as well.
Yes, after the two losses, what did you tell your team after the loss in St. Louis to keep the team together and focus going into this game with the LA Wildcats?
Well, I was a little bit forceful last week, right after that game, because I thought it was a game we could have won and probably should have won had we not self-destructed. But we had some guys that got frustrated by some of the things that were going on and felt that some things should have been called by the officials. And I just told them it's not their place to think that they're the ones making those decisions. The officials have to call the game, and you have to respond to the way the game's being called. For us to have as many self-inflicted wounds as we had last week was really, really disturbing. So I just talked about what it needs, you know, what we would need to do in order to win, and certainly, you know, self-control, discipline, composure, poise, you know, were going to be essential factors or qualities if we were going to win the game, and that you have to play within the parameters of the rules. That's just the way it is. That's the way life is. And our guys responded very, you know, very maturely, very positively, very professionally, which is what gave us the chance. And then when it comes down to just will and character and everything else, I'm always confident in our guys. But the other things we needed to rein in, and to their credit, they did. Thank you all. Appreciate it.